In this timeline, it's us talking about Ted Chiang's short stories. In another timeline, it's people way more qualified. But
oh no.
Here we are.
I try not to think about those people.
So much more handsome, intelligent, wise beyond their years.
Those rat bastards.
Stuck with us.
Welcome to Science Fiction Book Club, a podcast for bookworms and stargazers. In every episode, we dive into the pages of our favorite science fiction novels to break down the big ideas, ask the nerdy questions, and maybe learn a bit about ourselves along the way. My name's Abu, and as always, I'm joined by alternate timeline Opsa from another reality. You wouldn't believe what podcast recording technology can do these days, folks.
Quantum entangled podcast. It's great.
That's right. The first ever. You're hearing it here. Opsa, we are here to wrap up our journey with Ted Chiang's Exhalation short story collection by diving deep into the final short story in that collection titled Anxiety is the Dizziness of Freedom.
That's right. And of course, spoiler warning, Abu just said it. I shouldn't have to repeat it. Please have read the last story here before we dive into this. And of course, join us, read along with us, share your thoughts. You can email us at sci-fi-bookclubpod@loreparty.com. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/sci-fi-bookclubpod, where we've got free reading guides, discussion questions, all the bonus clips and bloopers you could hope to find. And it's also, of course, where you can join our Discord, where we like to keep these nerdy sci-fi discussions going with fellow readers in our community.
That's right. And folks, as always, those links are in the show notes below. So check them out after you're done listening. Now, with the housekeeping out of the way, here's the game plan for today's episode. As always, we will begin by summarizing the assigned reading. Then we'll each share our first impressions and thoughts on the short story. And finally, we will wrap up by diving deep in our sci-fi analysis. And so, before the pads of our prisms run out, let's take a quick break. Don't go anywhere, folks. When we come back, we're diving into the final short story in this collection.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So our orders get all backed up. We're drowning in paperwork, then actually drowning, careless fighting off sharks with a stapler, and pirates are pillaging the office copier, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant goes beyond the resume, using unique insights to deliver a smarter shortlist. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Are you a forward thinker? Then you need an HR and finance platform that thinks like you do. Workday is the AI platform that helps propel your organization, your workforce, and your industry into the future. Workday, moving business forever forward.
All right, welcome back, friends. Let's begin with a brief summary as always. Anxiety is set in a near future where prisms allow people to communicate with parallel versions of themselves. The story follows multiple characters navigating the fallout of accessing these alternate lives. Nat works at Self-Talk, a prism rental shop. She there learns how prisms work. Essentially, they're quantum devices that create divergent timelines through measurement, allowing communication until their finite paths are exhausted, after which the branches are disconnected forever.
Another important character we meet in this story is Dana. Dana runs a support group for people whose prism use has become problematic and destructive for their lives.
Right.
Through Dana's support sessions, it's revealed to us the darker applications of this technology. Some of her clients use it to rationalize away their own destructive behavior, for example. Others become obsessed with envying their parallel selves who are hotter, richer, and just so much cooler.
That's definitely not us. We soon encounter another of the central characters in the cast here, Morrow. Morrow is Nat's coworker who has been manipulating elderly prism users by extorting money from them. There's a case of Mrs. Olson who he convinces that he can claim funds that are transferred across timelines. He also ends up sending Nat undercover to steal a prism from Dana's support group and one of the members there, Lyle, and he intends on selling it to a grieving celebrity who's desperate to connect with his dead partner.
Now, Morrow's schemes ultimately come to a head when Mrs. Olsen's son, Glenn, shoots him in a confrontation. And Glenn reasons that, quote, if it's going to happen in some timeline anyway, why shouldn't I be the one to do it? End quote. Showing us an example of how these alternate realities and access to them has reshaped society. Glenn is able to justify murder,
Right.
cold-blooded murder,
Yeah.
because, well, it's going to happen in some timeline anyway.
Might
It
as well
happens
be
out
this
there
one.
at some point. Might as well be this one.
Yeah.
And this murder, of course, becomes the story's moral pivot. This becomes a shifting point for Nat.
That's right. Nat ends up deciding to proceed with the scheme despite Morrow's death. And in a pretty climactic moment, with her finger hovering over the transfer button, she seemingly decides not to proceed. The choice is deliberately ambiguous there, but it seems from her attendance of the support group meeting soon after that she's in fact turned a page. She reveals that she has recently chosen generosity over selfishness for perhaps the first time in her life. She understands that the past choices that she had made had created these ruts in her brain, that they had started to form habits and a pattern of behavior, and the only way to become a better person would be to make consistent, better choices.
Now, to wrap up our summary here, a plot thread that's been weaved throughout the short story is Dana's personal journey and the guilt that she has associated with a friend breakup, essentially, that happened in her past. At the end of the story, Dana receives videos from 6 parallel versions of herself showing her that her friend Vanessa had spiraled into self-destructive behaviors regardless of any of Dana's actions in these other 6 branches.
Right.
And this revelation essentially frees Dana from the decades of guilt that she has been carrying, thinking that she had betrayed Vanessa in high school, that she had been the reason her friend Vanessa, someone she cared for, had gone down such a self-destructive path. It reveals to her that she wasn't the cause and that she can finally let go of that guilt.
That's right.
Wow, what a classic Dead Chiang story.
Yes.
I mean, there's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
With the summary out of the way, Opsa, tell me what you think. What did you think of the final short story here?
I mean, I totally agree. This is classic Ted Chiang, just peak, and I thought it was marvelously told. Obviously, the prisms are meticulously thought out, but more importantly, they allow us to explore these really big questions about moral responsibility and identity that have haunted us for ages. And
Yeah.
I think what particularly stood out to me in my second reading was that despite that high concept premise, it actually felt very grounded. Like,
Yes.
well, we're talking about quantum communication across parallel universes, but when you zoom out, the story centers on a retail worker that's covering for her shady coworker, support group meetings, and elderly people in nursing homes. It's like pretty mundane in, I think, the best possible way, given the contrast with the ideas we're exploring here. We're essentially getting to see what prisms do to ordinary people, making ordinary choices, which I thought was really
Yes.
powerful and really compelling. And I will say, despite our criticisms of some of the previous story's length, I actually found I didn't mind it as much with this story, that it didn't
I
feel
agree.
like it dragged on quite as much as I somewhat anticipated when I saw the page count. And I was really pleasantly surprised that this just kind of flowed for me.
Yeah, I think the larger cast helped the pacing a bit because you
Yes.
really want to spend more time with the characters and you
Yeah.
kind of need the space
Right.
to do that.
Right.
I actually think a much shorter, truncated version of this story wouldn't feel as satisfying. Some of the arcs would feel rushed.
I agree. And the ways that their lives kind of interweave through one another's, I thought also kind of helped it keep the momentum alive and just felt propulsive and moving forward, while still being able to get these like really fun vignettes of the different characters. But in any case, I'm curious what you think about it. How did the story land for you?
I completely agree. I think once again, Chiang has taken a extremely complicated science concept like quantum mechanics, and told a deeply human story.
Right.
Like you said, we're experiencing what this technology does to normal people living everyday lives.
Right.
This is not some sort of high concept quantum thief heist. We're jumping through timelines. The president is now involved. Someone's assassinating the president.
That's right.
Like the creator of the quantum mechanic technology has been kidnapped. Like none of that shit is here, you know?
Right.
This is just everyday people.
Yeah.
And this technology has seeped its way into the lives of these people. And Chiang is thus exploring how a disruptive technology like quantum mechanics and the ability to communicate with alternate timelines would affect everyone.
Yeah.
Socially, personally, economically, emotionally. We explore all of those facets of the human experience through the lens of this technology. Chiang is just asking the ultimate what if question about quantum mechanics,
right,
and answering it through the lives of Nat, Dana, Lyle, etc.
Right.
In particular, a part of the story that really resonated with me was this exploration of the value of our choices, our personal choices.
Yeah, totally.
Balanced with the random pointlessness of chance.
Yeah.
The weather, for example, a minor weather change on a particular day can have such long tail consequences on world events.
Yeah.
That making a parallel universe a comparison point for your life here, today, and now is almost a crazy choice.
Totally.
And yet, almost all of the characters in this story do exactly that.
Yeah, totally. They can't help themselves.
They can't help themselves. It is so human for us.
Totally.
Faced with quantum mechanic technology like this, logic would be out the window.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if essentially the butterfly effect would make these alternate realities so dramatically different that it would be useless to actually communicate with them, in the sense that you would compare yourself with your alternate self, or your circumstances with an alternate community circumstances. But again, through Dana's support groups, we see how people continue to do that and use it to define themselves. I really liked how, I think it was Lyle, the support group member Lyle, keeps trying to go on dates with the people that his alternate self is dating,
right,
because he thinks that means they're compatible.
Right.
And of course the dates are awkward and nothing ever pans out.
Yeah.
Clearly Lyle's alternate self is like much more suave and is like happily out there dating.
All right.
And Lyle is using that as a point of comparison and really putting himself down. It's destroying his self-esteem, comparing himself to this alternate version of himself who perhaps is nothing like him.
Yeah.
But that's certainly not stopping Lyle from making that comparison.
Yeah.
I think that's, again, such a human thing. We can't help but compare ourselves to each other, right? In everyday life.
Totally.
Imagine how that escalates when now we can compare ourselves to ourselves.
Yeah.
In an alternate reality. It would just be
totally.
impossible to avoid the temptation to do that.
Totally.
I can't claim that I would avoid the temptation to do that.
Oh, no. I think we would absolutely be looking.
Yeah, absolutely, we would. Yeah. And, personally, I've always had thoughts about like, man, what is alternate reality timeline Abu doing right now? I think about this quite a bit, probably more than I should.
Yeah.
So if I could like phone up alternate Abu, you're goddamn right I would. And honestly, I'd probably be feeling bad about myself or good about myself, right? Like there's probably an alternate reality Abu.
Yeah. Who's destitute and whose podcast is not getting any listens.
He's just podcasting into the void.
Yeah, that's right.
So that part of this story really resonated with me. There's obviously a lot of beautiful explorations of, for example, grief with the celebrity. There's explorations of sort of the criminal element. If you'll recall, in Truth of Fact, Truth of Feeling, we talked about how Remem opens up some wild possibilities for crime. And I really appreciate that in this short story, Ted Chiang was like, yeah, man.
Totally.
Prisms would open up some wild criminal enterprises.
Totally.
I mean, for what it's worth, our guy, Morrow, is working pretty small scale. I'm sure there's like huge mafia crime, like interdimensional crime schemes taking place in this universe.
Yeah.
Which we do get reference to a little bit in the short story.
Totally.
So I love it. This really resonated with me. This was a high note to end this collection on for sure.
Yes.
And ultimately, I'm still walking away appreciating so much that Ted Chiang avoids the temptation to tell a grimdark story. This could just be a story from Morrow's perspective about a crime gone wrong. But it's not. It's about Dana and the beautiful revelations this technology creates for her, the way it helps her let go of her guilt. It's about Nat, the way this technology and her experiences with it help her make better more moral choices, better choices to help her realize the patterns that she's been stuck in and how to break out of them. So I loved that we got these beautiful examples of how prisms can have incredibly positive outcomes on people's lives as well.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And it's also, I think, what's kind of excellent about this story and the others in the collection is that we get to explore what remains the same and what changes when new technologies are introduced. And it's always kind of interesting because it's almost like looking in a funhouse mirror where there are some distortions and some things that feel different, of course, than the world that we know today. But at the same time, you can see, oh, well, that's still me. I can still see some version of our common humanity in these reflected in these stories. And so I thought this story absolutely kind of delivered on that particular kind of promise. And I loved it. I think this was a, really, I totally agree. High note to end on.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, that's the summary of the short story and some of our thoughts and feelings on it. Folks, don't go anywhere. After a short break, we're going to get into our sci-fi analysis, and Opsa, you're going to take us through a real excellent takeaway. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
Hi, it's Will Cooley from the New York Rangers.
Cooley scores!
Ring in the new year with me in Miami. The NHL Winter Classic is coming to the Sunshine State. Watch as we take on the Florida Panthers in the 2026 Discover NHL Winter Classic in Miami. Catch all the action on January 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. That's January 2nd at 8 p.m. on TNT and HBO Max. For tickets and more info, visit nhl.com/winterclassic.
Welcome back, folks. Let's continue our exploration of anxieties, the dizziness of freedom, and get into our sci-fi analysis. Opsa, it looks like in the script here you have an excellent takeaway to take us through. So I'll hand the mic to you.
Thank you. It's in fact blank. I will be winging this.
No script, winging it completely.
So off the top of my dome, this is what I want to explore. What I want to unpack is the titular anxiety of freedom, the dizziness of freedom, and what this story has to say about knowledge, certainty, and free will. I'm obviously going to focus on this story, but I can't help but draw comparisons with a previous story in the collection, What's Expected of Us.
Yes.
I may also touch on Omphalos because I think there are a lot of parallels with this one as well.
Yes, I agree.
So What's Expected of Us presents the nightmare scenario. Absolute certainty about the illusion of free will via the predictor device. We'll remember that just before you press the button, the light comes on. And there's no way to prevent that. And the devastation to society is pretty immediate and widespread. A third of users develop akinetic mutism and become consciously catatonic, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying, certainly.
Yeah.
And the solution that the narrator in that story offers is uncomfortable, but seemingly the only option. Pretend you have free will, even though you know you don't. Civilization, it suggests, depends on self-deception. Anxiety offers a pretty radically different perspective. It leans on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics and shows us a universe where choices really do split reality into different paths. And we can peek at them for a fleeting moment. It's almost the exact inverse. Rather than a predetermined script, every decision literally branches reality. We're not simply automatons performing our determined function. Our choices matter. Our choices ripple across time and space and parallel universes. It's absolutely dizzying.
Wow. Yeah.
But here's the thing. The world of anxiety isn't simply better off than the one of what's expected of us. As we were saying in our discussion earlier, we get to see how the things about humans kind of remain the same. We react to the prisms in classically human ways. Some develop addictions, others exploit them for personal gain. Shout out Morrow. But some... Hey, you gotta give your boy his flowers where they're due.
That's true. R.I.P. to a real one, I guess.
Pour one out. I can't help it. But in any case, there are some, of course, that find ways of navigating life with the knowledge that their choices are genuinely theirs and they genuinely matter. It seems by the end, Nat has reached this conclusion. Dana, I think, is verging on this conclusion. Jorge has decided to take responsibility for vandalizing his coworker's car and fess up to his life.
Good on him, honestly. Shouts to our boy Jorge, you
know? Yeah, and so I think that's like it's a pretty powerful just kind of depiction of how these prisms affect people in different ways, and some end up choosing a kind of a more noble path than others, perhaps. And I had some author's notes at the back of my copy that I think bolster some of the conclusions. Because, of course, some would argue that if every choice happens in some universe anyway, decisions are meaningless. And that's exactly what Olson voices. Quote, if it happens in some timeline anyway, why not here? And then, of course, proceeds to kill Morrow.
Oof, right.
Which, again, RIP. But I think Chiang's rebuttal to this fatalism is also pretty elegant. If character is revealed by the choices we make over time, then our character is also revealed by the choices we make across many worlds. He puts it this way. If you could somehow examine a multitude of Martin Luthers across many worlds, I think you'd have to go far afield to find one that didn't defy the church. And that would say something about the kind of person he was. End quote.
Wow. Okay.
Which I thought was really interesting. Chiang is essentially saying we have agency in each moment, and our choices have meaningful consequences for who we are and for who we become. He makes that point also explicitly through Dana in a passage I really enjoyed. Quote, it's not just your behavior in this branch that you're changing. You're inoculating all the versions of you that split off in the future. By becoming a better person, you're ensuring that more and more of the branches that split off from this point forward are populated by better versions of you.
Wow. Yeah.
Past choices constrain, but they don't eliminate our future freedom. If we examined Morrow, for example, across many branches, we would probably find him consistently exploiting people and rationalizing his selfishness. That pattern reveals his character. It was never predetermined.
Despite our ardent belief in Morrow's inner goodness.
That's right.
There's definitely lots of Morrows out there scamming the shit out of people.
Exactly. And the truth is that, while it was never predetermined, his choices became habits, and those habits became entrenched patterns. But I think what's key is that he was always at the helm of his own life. He never had to scam Mrs. Olsen of that 20,000. He never had to goad Mr. Olsen as well into the murder. But I think in any case, that's kind of where the title comes into play. It's drawn from Kierkegaard, who we of course mentioned last episode, the 19th century Christian Danish philosopher who wrote that anxiety arises from confronting freedom itself. It's the sheer possibility of choice that is so terrifying. Standing at a cliff's edge and realizing that you could jump. The terror comes from your own freedom to choose. And that's exactly what the prisms force onto people. You're staring into the abyss made concrete. It's terrifying because it means you're genuinely responsible for your life. But that anxiety, that dizziness is the price of freedom, of being genuinely free. So I think whereas what's expected of us offers only the strategic self-deception as the path forward in a determined universe, anxiety suggests we have freedom to choose, and it's possible to live with the anxiety that produces. That, in fact, that anxiety isn't a bug of our existence, it's a feature. It's a core tenet of our free will. The point isn't to escape that dizziness, it's to choose anyways, to build character and to become someone whose patterns across many worlds reflect the values that you want to embody. All right, find that to be a pretty empowering message to wrap this book up on.
Wow. Oh my gosh. What a beautiful takeaway, Obsa. That is such an empowering message. And I think Nat realizes that this as well, right? The ruts in my mind that have been formed by my past actions, this realization that every choice you make informs a future you.
Yeah.
And if Nat wants a better future, not only for herself, but a better version of herself for all the alternate Nats in all the alternate realities, her choices matter. Every one of her choices matter.
That's right.
And that can be, like you're saying, anxiety inducing. The weight of that perhaps can be something that's too much for people or difficult to grapple with. But I strongly feel it's true.
Yeah.
I really agree with the core premise of your takeaway here and the core thesis of Chiang's final story in this collection. And I really like how you contrasted it with what's expected of us. You know, I think what's in the what's expected of us universe, the like multi-universal theory is not true.
Right.
And the assumption is that the future is concrete and set in stone.
Right.
There is no branching off of the path.
Right.
And here, where there are branchings off of the path, you're right. I think we get this alternative thesis that your choices matter so much.
Yeah.
I'm curious, though. Here's something that this book made me think about that's related here to your takeaway. You mentioned how in the author's notes at the end of your copy, Chiang says that if you looked for Martin Luther's across many worlds, you'd have to go very far to find one that didn't defy the church.
Right.
Something in me inherently wants to reject that. Like something in me wants to say, I don't think you'd have to go that far. Because if you're claiming that weather patterns, something as innocuous as a slight change in the weather pattern on one day can have huge ripple effects across history over time, I would argue that I think people are not inherently who they are, and thus their actions will reflect that across all timelines. What if Martin Luther like tripped and broke his leg?
Right.
Or like died of the bubonic plague or something.
Right.
He's not going to be defying the church in that timeline. And you don't have to go very far afield to find a version in which maybe Martin Luther gets sick and dies.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you think there is sort of like a concrete many Martin Luthers because of who he is and the choices he's made in his life? If you split him at, let's say, like in early adulthood, all adult versions of Martin Luther would defy the church, or most, a vast majority. Do you feel that's true? Something in me rejects that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting kind of putting this story into conversation also with Omphalos, in that there is that question of like faith and science and like their compatibility, and also the fact that there's kind of built-in assumptions into any worldview, right? Like science, I mean, it's kind of also inherent to science. Like the premise of science is that if we find evidence that contradicts a previous conclusion, that we change our conclusion. And so it's interesting thinking about this like question of branching universes, because I think there's certainly an interpretation of quantum mechanics that results in this, outcome and this like theory of many universes. But it's also just kind of a leap of faith, like we can't, we certainly can't access them right now. We have no evidence of these other universes. And so I think Ted Chiang, and he kind of also mentions this in those author notes, he's kind of neutral about this question of the reality of the many worlds. And so I think like this like note that like you probably couldn't find Martin Luther that didn't defy the church, I think probably is like, there's a lot of weight hanging on that word. And and the truth is like,
that's true.
There's a bit of a leap being made there, because, I think like another thing to kind of compare it with is just because I saw a dumb YouTube video about this yesterday.
Hell yeah.
If you look at irrational numbers like pi, 3.14,
okay,
whatever that.
Wait, what the fuck is your YouTube algorithm? Did you just say if you look at irrational numbers like pi in this YouTube video I saw yesterday?
Yeah, my algorithm is tricky. But in any case, the conclusion of the video, basically highlighted that every number can be found contained in the part after the decimal, the 1415. Every single string of like any possible conceivable number, every pattern of numbers can be found. It's an infinitely continuing string of numbers, and therefore, if you, for example, converted those numbers to, say, letters and words, you could find the entirety of everything we've ever written. You could find the entirety of your life story. You could find every work of Shakespeare, and you could find.
I mean, infinity is like such an impossible concept to wrap your mind around.
Precisely, and so just kind of translating it to this story, in this many worlds interpretation, theoretically, there's an infinity number of these universes because every choice will have created a different timeline.
That's true.
And so, I mean, I don't think you could actually quantify the number of Martin Luthers and then say, because a majority of them took
X% of them.
You just couldn't actually perform that calculation, So I think
that's true.
There's some, leaps being made here. But I still, I think the core thesis here still resonates with me, that, and particularly since we can only access this timeline, that the weight of your choices have impacts on who you become, like those habits,
absolutely,
those patterns, they do characterize your life. And it's not that any individual choice defines who you are, but it's the accumulated weight of those choices and how that creates a sort of kind of momentum and kind of inertia around the core of what it means to be Abu or to be Obsa or whomever else.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. I agree. The core message of the story still really resonates with me. And I also want to connect back to our discussion in the last episode with Omphalos. We talked about existentialism.
Yeah.
And something that really resonated with me from that philosophy was accountability.
Yeah. That
your actions lead to consequences, and those are yours to bear. We see characters like Jorge, for example, in this story, choosing to ignore that fact, to say, well, it's fine. Like other me plus current me, it all balances out. It all kind of like shakes out in on the cosmic scales of the universe. So who cares?
Right.
That is an idea I strongly reject. And I think Chiang also rejects in this short story.
Right.
your actions do matter. They define who you are, and you are actually empowered to change that at any time. You might be stuck in a rut like Nat because of your past, which might be constraining you, but recognizing that you can change is extremely empowering. And the prisms show that to you. The prisms reveal in stark reality that you are capable of change, because Lyle, my guy, there is a suave version of you going on dates with tens every single weekend. You can too, actually.
Right.
It's not a comparison point where you need to feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
It's an inherent truth that you are capable of doing that, because there is actually a version of you out there doing that already. That to me is actually a reason to be motivated by the prisms, you know?
Yeah, right. I think, like, to that point, obviously, because we don't have prisms at the moment, one can, you know, like, we do have the power of imagination. We can kind of conceive of other versions of ourselves and choose to make the choices that allow us to kind of grow closer and closer to, you know, a somewhat more idealized version of who we are. And I think also, like, that question, you know, just kind of in the title is like, that's pretty provoking, you know, that anxiety is like really deeply connected to freedom, you know, our free will. And it can be a scary thing. And generally with anxiety, humans are apt to just do anything to kind of get away from it, to ignore it, to somehow dismiss it. But it's a core feature of what I think is empowering about our lives, that we get to choose meaning and that our choices have weight.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Great takeaway, Obso. Wow.
Oh, thank you.
This really got me thinking deeply about this story in a way I hadn't, you know, because I was mostly just thinking about our boy Morrow.
Much maligned, but really a sweet guy.
Yeah. Trust us, folks. There's a heart of gold under there. We just didn't see it in this timeline. There's another alternate timeline Ted Chiang story in which Morrow is the hero.
That's right.
Great takeaway, Obsa. Thank you so much for taking us down that rabbit hole. A lot to think about in this story, and I think ultimately a very empowering message here.
Totally agree.
Even the scary parts of freedom, the anxiety-inducing parts of freedom, are a feature, not a bug. And that ultimately that freedom allows us to define ourselves, to make the choices that we want, for better or worse.
Usually for worse, but sometimes for the better.
Hopefully most of the time for the better.
That's right.
Okay, to wrap up our read of this whole collection, so we got to give it a rating. That's the law around these parts.
That's right.
So now that we've gone through all 9 short stories in this collection, what do you think? What did you think of Exhalation by Ted Chiang? What would you rate it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no surprise to listeners that we both loved this collection of short stories. I think I'd have to give this one 9 branching universes out of 10.
Okay.
Really, really a terrific collection of stories, all of which I really enjoyed reading and more so discussing with you in these episodes.
Same.
Of course, a few of the stories perhaps could have used a little editing down, but all in all, it's really hard, if not impossible, to find much fault with this book. I think the thing that I loved about short stories and obviously about Ted Chiang short stories is the way he kind of expertly crafts this like setup punchline with all of them, where you're sort of bought into a premise that forces you to kind of confront your worldview in a particular subtle way. And then he just really like solidly delivers a punchline that kind of shatters it in really kind of rewarding ways. So I loved this book, and a solid 9 out of 10 for me. How about you?
I don't think it'll come out as a surprise to our listeners that I'm going to go ahead and rate Exhalation by Ted Chiang 5 lung canisters full of air out of 5 lung canisters full of air.
Lots of air to breathe.
I adore this short story collection. I'm a bit of a sucker for short story collections as it is. And the fact that this is a sci-fi one and one of the best sci-fi ones ever makes this easily a nearly perfect book for me. Outside of the minor nitpicks and critiques that we've mentioned throughout our coverage, I'm in the same boat as you. I find it difficult to find many or any faults with this short story collection. I think Ted Chiang, as we covered in our meta-analysis a few episodes ago, is one of the best sci-fi writers, certainly currently alive, and too soon to maybe say ever, but could be argued one of the best sci-fi writers ever. And I think this is a book, if you are a science fiction fan. If you are not a science fiction fan,
this will make you one.
This will make you one,
Yeah.
and this is a book you must read.
Totally.
So, really great collection, and I will love it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, same boat here. Strongly, strongly recommend.
All right, folks, that wraps up our journey with Ted Chiang. For now, we're going to be moving on to another book.
That's right.
Which is kind of exciting. We've been in the Ted Chiang world a long time, so it'll be fun to shift to another storyteller. Here's the assignment, in case you haven't checked that season 3 schedule in the show notes below. For the next episode of Science Fiction Book Club, make sure that you have grabbed a copy of This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Motar and Max Gladstone, and that you have read chapters 1 through 12, which is roughly the first half of that book.
Right.
That's what we'll be covering in the next episode. So we hope you're excited to start a brand new journey with us.
That's right. You can, of course, find our entire reading schedule in the show notes, so be sure to check those out so you can keep up with the readings. But we're excited to have you along for the journey.
That's right. All right, friends. Your choices ripple across time, space, and parallel branches. So make them count and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. 5 stars only, please.
5 stars only.
And be sure to check out the other shows on the Lore Party Podcast Network on loreparty.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at lore_party. And of course, we're also on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's not just your behavior in this branch that you're changing.
It's every branch.
Every single one. It's a bit anxiety-inducing, but your 5-star review ripples out across the universe. Infinitely, forever.
Forever.
Think about that. If you're thinking about a 4-star review, just stop and consider.
Future versions of you will suffer.
And current versions of us will suffer, so please don't hurt
We're
our
begging
feelings.
you.